Hello. So, I have this radio in for repair and, well, basically a check over. It's got a label on the top of it. TX OK, RS OK, distortion on audio on TX. I have to check that later. Check operation of attenuator processor, AGC, noise blanket. Okay. So this is a pretty basic HF radio. It's Yaesu FT4A40. Covers 1.8 megahertz to 29 megahertz. Basically 160 meters to 10 meters. And it might do CB as well, I'm not sure whether it's wide-banded or not, but that's not important. So, on receive, it seems to be working extremely well. Got a massive S-meter reading there, and that's probably because I'm putting a massive signal into it. I'm putting 29 megahertz and minus 50 dBm into it, which is a very big signal. And as you can see, a nice tone. Let's drop the power down. Minus 70. Minus 82 is S9, which equates to 16 microvolts for some reason. All S meters are not the same. Let's go down even further. That is very sensitive. That is minus 107 dBm. And it'll go right down to minus 120 dBm. So that appears to work okay. And it does seem to be okay on the other bands. I suppose we could just check another band. 1.931. Let's dial that in. Just take it down to 1931. Yes, you can still hear that on 160 meter band, so that's very good. So I don't think there's any problems with the actual receiver on this radio. What we could do is check the attenuator. Turn the power up. Let's get, I think it's a 20 dB attenuator, so that's S9 plus 20. Perfect. Exactly 20 dBs. So I don't know about this. Whether some of these buttons are a bit noisy, I don't know. One thing I do know, that I've noticed, is the dial is quite stiff to turn. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't think it normally would be. But I can have a look at that. Might need oiling. Who knows what it needs. Interestingly though, if I go to FM, I'm sure all the other things work. Still works on AM, I'm sure. If I go to FM, So what was I putting in there? Minus 67. Oh yeah, it is working. Yeah, on AM. I could put some modulation on, but I don't want to at the moment. I think it's working fine. But FM, and don't normally use FM on that frequency, but I turn the modulation on. Right, that should have FM modulation on it. It's incredibly quiet. And I think I know the reason why it doesn't receive, nor does it transmit in FM. I think, having read the manual, that there's an optional FM board that goes in this radio. So I don't think it's been fitted, but I'm going to take the top off anyway. I suspect some of these buttons might need cleaning. Move to VFO. Okay. What were we in memory? How do we change the memory channel? Up and down. I don't really know how this radio works, but it can't be that difficult. VFO. Tuner button does nothing. Again, I think it has an optional auto tuner. Ah yeah, not internal auto tuner. I think you can buy one that plugs in. This hasn't got it, of course. Apart from that, it's quite a basic radio. As far as I can see, everything's working, but I've got to check everything, like the various functions. But could test it on transmit. So what I've done now is disconnected the signal generator and connected this big black thing, which is my 30 dB 100 watt power attenuator, and although you can't see it, on the other end there's another 10 dB because I'm close to the limit of my power sensor with 100 watts, even with 30 dB in. 100 watts is plus 50, 30 dB, that means you get plus 20 dBm, and the power sensor is rated at 100, so I've got 100 milliwatts or 20 dBm. So I've stuck another 10 dBm in it. I've got it wired up to the what's it called? Agilent RF power meter. Well, if we look at the front first of all, and I whistle, getting some indication of power. Well, if it makes it a difference putting that processor on. Might be a bit more lively. I don't know how you adjust the processor. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's just a fixed thing. But let's go to the power meter anyway. I forgot to turn my bench light on. Not that. Anyway, never mind. And that's my power meter, reading virtually nothing at the moment. That's 5 watts I saw then. I've got the power turned right down. If I turn it right up, see what happens. That should be 100 watts peaks. I think I saw over 100 then at times. It's hard to see it. I have to look in the camera screen. Yeah, I saw over 100 watts there. So that, I believe, is producing its full output, which is always a good thing, to get 100 watts output. And of course I could have done it in CW mode and have a continuous output power, but I don't want to stress the radio too much by running all that power. Maybe, I suppose it's designed to do that. So I think I'll take the top off it and see what's inside. So there it is with the top off, and somebody had been in this before because there was one screw missing. Isn't it horrible when people lose screws? Maybe I can find one to go in there, but what we can see here is various plug-in options. One's an AM filter, one's a CW filter. And over there it says option FM unit, so it doesn't work on FM. This is all a bit sad, but we can't have everything. Might disconnect that because that looks a bit dodgy, that speaker wire, and get rid of the top. And while I've got it apart, I might have a look at the might take the bottom off as well. Just have a look at these buttons to see if they've got any issues. They might benefit from being sprayed with contact cleaner. These seem just quick buttons, but these are more latching, so they're more likely to have issues, I think, than those are. Don't know about these, but okay, let's get the bottom off it, I think. So, having taken the bottom off it, you can hinge the front panel down to get some kind of access. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do in here, really. It's going to be quite a difficult job to take all these boards out, and I don't know if there's much point. They really cheapened their construction method up, because this is the switchboard with the AGC and attenuator and whatever on it, and they're just holding that in by bits of metal which are twisted round. So this was sort of a cheapy radio, wasn't it, where they couldn't be bothered with proper screws. I mean, I could pull that board out, but what I'm going to do with it when I get it out, I don't know. Is there much point? And I don't think I'll break those off. I never have. Well, I think I might have done a few times on previous things, but it's never been out before, I'm sure, so it should be quite easy to get out. So I'll go and do that. So, quite difficult to get that board out because of the buttons. You have to leave 2 on and 2 pull off. But I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with this, because I think it might be they're all sealed up. Well, they might have some me get in there properly. So you can peel back a piece of sticky paper when there's a hole. So the obvious thing to do with a hole like that is spray some switch cleaner in it. But I should take the whole thing off really, because it'll get wet. Whether it's getting where it should do or not is another matter. Because it looks like a spring underneath there. But that's really all I can do. And I'll do the other ones the same and then put it back together. So I've just squirted the other switches as best I could, took those paper labels off. Not sure I've done much good. Not sure it really needed doing. It was very fiddly to get it all back in. And that's about it really. I don't think I want to take anything else particularly apart, because I'm not convinced there's anything wrong with the other buttons anyway. They all did what they were supposed to do. So really it's a matter of getting it all back together and testing it to see if that's good, isn't it? One of them isn't working. Two of them aren't working. I've created more problems than I needed to here. So I'm not sure where I got to now, because it's a few days later, but clearly trying to clean those switches has caused permanent failure in two of them. And I suspect that that was the original problem. They were intermittently working and not working, some of those switches, because now two of them are permanently faulty. So I actually took them apart, took them off the board, well, three of them anyway, the one's still on there, and that's a bad one, that's a bad one, and that's a good one still. So I took them apart and I had a look, and I compared a good switch with a bad switch, and it was quite clear that a piece of plastic had broken off inside the switch, and I think they're very poor quality switches anyway. You'd expect Yaesu to use something a bit better than this. They look about £1 on eBay type switches. So my plan was to replace all four of them, and that brings me on to the next issue of trying to find any. Well, I did find on my first resource, which is eBay, somebody in America offering to sell, I think, three of them second hand on a board, different board, and he wanted about $30, something ridiculous like that for second hand switches, plus enormous amounts of postage. Forget that one. Then I tried searching for the part number on Google. That squeaking is my chair, by the way. It's my dad's old chair from his workshop. So yeah, I searched the part number, and a well-known radio shop in this country was offering to sell me these switches for £15 each. Bloody ridiculous price. So wasn't going to go down that route unless the owner wanted me to. So I thought, well, why not phone Yaesu UK? And I'm really glad I did. They were so helpful. Didn't really expect them to deal with members of the public. But the guy in the service department said, oh, I'm not sure, but we got any of those. I looked that number up. And he looked the number up and he said, well, it actually says we have 8 in stock. Doesn't necessarily mean we have, but I'll have a look for you, he said. And he said, yeah, we've got 8. So I ordered 4 without even talking to the owner, because they were so cheap. Yaesu wanted £2.79 only for each switch. which I thought was reasonable, plus the VAT and the postage carriage. So all of them, it came to £21 something. And when I told the owner later on, he was more than happy about that. And that was whenever that was. And much to my amazement, the doorbell rang the next morning, and it was a package from FedEx with the switches. So it was less than 24 hours delivery, which is amazing service, isn't it, really, these days? Especially when I've been waiting for something else for 3 weeks that I bought on eBay. That's beside the point. And so now I'm going to get the radio. Stop squeaking. Nasty radio. I'm going to get the remaining switch off the board. Which is down there. And I'm going to put all 4 new ones in. Then hopefully that issue will be fixed. So I'll go ahead and do that and come back to you when it's all done. Okay, well, I didn't film all that rubbish because it's too difficult. But a bit of a nervous moment there, getting the actual buttons to push on, because you have to lower the board and the switches down on top of the buttons and then push from the front. And of course I was expecting the switches to break again, but they didn't. And now that one works, and so does that one, so does that one, so does that one. So they're all working, and I expect the operation that those control it will work fine. So what else do I need to do while I'm in this radio? I need to check, before I test it, is I want to check the backup battery to see what state that's in, and I want to check the frequency accuracy of the reference oscillator. And I've lost me a bit of paper with the frequency on it, but I'll go and find it in a minute. So here we are on the bottom side of the radio, and there is the backup battery, which is a coin cell lithium 2032. So 3 volts basically, or near about enough. And let's stick my probe on the top of that, and my other probe is on the case. And up here we have the voltage 3.3 volts, which you can't do better than that, can you? No idea when that was changed, or if it ever has been changed. I think these radios came out about 20 years ago. So, and also strangely, there's a switch by it which says backup. So you can turn the backup on and off. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to turn the backup on and off, but maybe there's a good reason. And over here I can see the reference crystal oscillator. Crystal, not the oscillator. And it's the cheap and nasty version that will drift a fair bit. You can get an optional, you can see it's removable, optional module which is temperature controlled, stable and all that nonsense. So now I've lost my bit of paper which says what the frequency is supposed to be. It's probably written on the crystal. But I'll go and find my bit of paper and see if I can see where the test point is to measure that. Really, ideally, I'm going to have to leave this to warm up a bit, I think. This radio is pretty damn cold in here at the moment. It's actually 15 degrees, 59 Fahrenheit in the workshop. So I think I'm going to wire it all up, put the case on it temporarily, and give it a chance, half an hour or so to warm up. Okay, so I looked at the service manual, and now we're getting problems here because the service manual says we should have a reference frequency of 5.2428880 megahertz, plus or minus 3 hertz. Well, that's nonsense, because you won't be able to see this crystal because it's so tiny. I mean, I could zoom in, but you can't see what's written on it properly. And it probably won't focus. Come on, stupid thing. But anyway, my crystal has got 10.4857 megahertz written on it. So where did they get that 5 megahertz from? I have no idea. But as that's got that written on the crystal, I'm going to adjust it for that. So I've got my counter probe on the test point using a scope probe. And what was I supposed to get? 10.4857 plus or minus 3. So I'm a little bit out there. I'm going to just adjust that. Radio's nice and warm now as well. Very touchy as I expected. Right, within 3 hertz. That's just going to be tricky. Very tricky to get it that close with such a very fine adjustment. And it's going to move around because it's not a proper temperature controlled crystal. But that is spot on as far as I'm concerned. What I will do now though is transmit and see what I measure coming out of it. So what I'm doing is I've connected via the attenuator to the radio to my frequency counter, running about 10 watts into the attenuator, and I've set the frequency at 29.9 on the dial on the radio. And what am I getting an error now? About 27 hertz maybe, which I guess is probably to be expected. It's never going to be that close because that is not a temperature controlled crystal. Yeah, 27 hertz I think is the error I'm getting. I think that's as good as it's going to get. Well, what happens if I put the top back on it? That might even change it. Let's put the top on it. Went in the wrong direction. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So there's a few other things he wanted me to check. He wanted to check AGC and noise blanker. Not sure how I'm going to check noise blanker, because I think it's probably going to work fine. I think it's more the issue with the switches. I can check AGC. If I put it's on slow, which it should be normally on single sideband. Turn the signal generator on. And off, and it's slow decay. If I put it into fast, then it's a much quicker decay. And again we'll test the attenuator, which works fine. So that's working. Noise blanker I can't properly test easily. I haven't got a noise source. I haven't got a decent antenna either, because I don't have any for those frequencies, HF. And the other thing he was worried about was distortion on audio on transmit. That again is going to be a difficult one. Also the processor function, but I think that's probably going to work. How am I going to test it on transmit? I can't talk to anybody because I haven't got anybody to talk to and no antenna. I could listen on another receiver. If I bring a receiver in here though, it's just going to howl, isn't it? I think I'm going to have to try and do that somehow with a... I'll think about that one. So, in order to test the received audio, it's a bit complicated, but I'm transmitting and I'm through the attenuator, and I've got a short whip antenna on the over stick coming out, so it's 30 dBs down, and I drag this receiver in over there from upstairs, which is my ICOM 8500 broadband receiver, 100 kilohertz, 2 gigahertz, and it's not ideal to try and do a test like this. I mean, I can if I pull the headphones out, it's just going to be a load of feedback. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. But when I listen on headphones, it does sound absolutely fine to me. So I declare that the transmit audio is fine. It's just very difficult to demonstrate it without actually making a contact and talking to somebody. So really, I think this radio is fine and everything's done that I need to do on it. I just need to get the screws back in and clear the mess up on the bench. It's amazing the amount of junk you accumulate when you're working on something, and it all has to go back where it came from after you've finished. So I'm sure this is a far too long a video, but if you got this far, thanks for watching and bye for now.